disappeared off the radar. It crashed near the village of Grabovo, which is about 50 kilometers from Ukraine's border with Russia. Well, the Ukrainian government says it was hit by a missile, the aircraft. The president saying his military, involved in a battle with pro-Russia separatists, was not involved. And emergency services rescue workers reported as saying that at least 100 bodies have been found so far. There were 295 people, that is crew and passengers, on board MH17. Well, the incident generating a huge response on social media as well as between international leaders. Julia MacDonald in our European News Centre in London, take us through what you've been able to discover.
Thanks very much, David. Well, of course, people all over the world, just like us, are understandably desperate to find out what's happened, and they're sharing a lot of information online. I've been following these feeds along with my colleague who joins me in the studio, Phil Lavelle. Hi there, Phil. Let's talk first of all about the airlines. They've been making some statements on Twitter, haven't they?
They are. They're gradually starting to respond to what's happened. We're going to start first of all with Malaysian Airlines, the airline that owned this plane. Their response, which was posted on Facebook, says Malaysia Airlines confirms it received notification from Ukrainian air traffic control that it had lost contact with flight MH17 at 14:15 GMT, 30 kilometers from Tamak waypoint, approximately 50 kilometers from the Russia-Ukraine border. Flight MH17 operated on a Boeing 747, departed Amsterdam 12:15 p.m. Amsterdam local time, was estimated to arrive at Kuala Lumpur International Airport 6:10 a.m. Malaysia the next day. The flight was carrying 280 passengers and 50 crew on board. The other airlines are starting to respond now. We've seen Air France saying that it has decided it will not fly over eastern Ukraine in the wake of the loss of this flight. It had already stopped flying over the Crimea region on the 3rd of April following uncertainty over safety of airspace in the wake of political unrest. KLM, the Dutch airline, has also responded. It's actually given us a statement. The statement reads, although yet not officially confirmed by Malaysia Airlines, which is obviously slightly out of date now, it is with great regret that KLM has learned about the possible incident with flight MH17, codeshare KL4103 of Malaysia Airlines from Amsterdam to Kuala Lumpur. We are in contact with Malaysia Airlines to obtain further information. There's a little bit more, which doesn't really say much else. British Airways have put its flights to Kiev under review. Turkish Airlines and Aeroflot also avoiding the area.
Let's talk about the reflection that there's been on Twitter about these statements and the behaviour in some instances of politicians. A lot of tweeting about Barack Obama when he made a statement this afternoon which people thought was far too jovial.
Yeah, I mean, he was at an event, I believe, in Delaware, and he sort of spruced up to the stage, then went into a very sort of somber pose to talk about what had happened, and then kind of carried on with the way he'd been before. A lot of slight unease about the way he seemed to respond there. The State Department, even Barack Obama's official Twitter account, are not mentioning this yet at all. You know, we have seen that statement on television. We've seen nothing on Twitter. We've heard from David Cameron, the British Prime Minister. He released a statement not long ago on his Twitter account in which he said, I am shocked and saddened by the Malaysian air disaster. Officials from across Whitehall, for viewers who aren't aware, is the sort of political area in the centre of London, are meeting to establish the facts. Vladimir Putin has commented. Vladimir Putin has discussed the situation in Ukraine with US President Barack Obama, is what his official Twitter account said, followed by condolences to Malaysian Prime Minister in connection with the crash of a passenger aircraft in Ukraine.
And what we've yet been able to do, Phil, and I'm guessing over the hours and the days that come, is to put a human face to this, because of course there are all these victims, 295 of them. In some instances there are pictures, of course, which we are not showing on Twitter, but it's starting to build a picture of the people who've lost their lives.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen faces of people we believe who lost their lives, faces from passports. Now, obviously, Twitter, one of its strengths is the immediacy. Things just get thrown on there. Sometimes you can't verify them, but the impression is that these are photographs of passports that seem to have somehow survived this crash. Pictures of people who may have been on board. We don't have the passenger list yet. We're not going to give any names, but I looked at one photograph which appears to be a middle-aged Dutch woman, and the passport appeared to be photographed near that site. Looking at some of the pictures here as well, these are a lot of images are coming through on Twitter. Some of them we're not showing, some we are. The more graphic ones obviously we're not showing, but there is lots of stuff here of the wreckage, lots of stuff of some of the bodies. Again, we're not going to show too much information here.
And of course, David's earlier guest was saying that those pictures that we're seeing will hopefully help the investigation, because the crash site is quite concentrated.
Yes, exactly. And also, you know, this claim that the black box has been retrieved. There is is video here, and again, this is the problem with Twitter. You can't always verify because people with agendas will push their things at the earliest opportunity. There is what looks like pictures of a Buk missile launcher being moved through the streets somewhere. It may have been today. It says here that it was today. Whether or not it was today, we don't know. But it lends credence to what Chris Yates was just saying in Manchester just a moment ago about the fact that this was probably not launched from the shoulder, but from a grounded missile.
And also something just popped up on Twitter about Britain calling for a meeting at the UN. Now that shows that we're moving in the direction away from caution on the international stage to looking at this more intently and saying what's the next step.
Yeah, and a lot of people